No warning, no declaration of war. Just silence. Then fire. At exactly 03 o'clock GMT, the skies above Iran erupted as 125 U.S. stealth aircraft launched one of the largest coordinated strikes in modern history. But this wasn't about stopping bombs. It was about crushing resistance. Within hours, missile trails scarred the landscape of Fordow, Isfahan, and Natanz. Civilians panicked. Markets collapsed. And yet, the nuclear sites remained largely intact, empty, evacuated. The true casualty? Trust. The illusion of diplomacy shattered. Beijing warned of grave violations of international law. Moscow activated naval units in the Caspian Sea. Islamabad declared a state of nuclear readiness. From Ankara to Berlin, the world held its breath as allies repositioned and rivals stirred. Was this truly about non-proliferation or about punishing defiance? If Iran is targeted for saying no, who's next? In this report, we uncover what the official narrative won't: the false flags, the strategic illusions, and the quiet war behind the televised strikes. Stay with us as we expose what was hidden beneath the flash of the bombs. This is not about nuclear weapons, it's punishment. At 3:42 a.m. local time, skies over Iran lit up with coordinated strikes from B-2 stealth bombers and long-range cruise missiles. Within minutes, news anchors across the West declared a precision operation. Iran's nuclear threat neutralized. But behind the orchestrated headlines lies a brutal truth. This wasn't disarmament. It was discipline. America's target was not enriched uranium. It was disobedience. The true offense? Iran's refusal to bow before Washington and Tel Aviv. The warplanes were not aimed at bombs, but at sovereignty itself. White House statements cited national security, but security is not what crumbles in Isfahan. It's independence. This is strategic theater, a message not just to Tehran, but to the entire region. Resist, and you will burn. Meanwhile, Gaza groans beneath another form of warfare, where food lines are strafed and aid trucks become bait. Under the silence of night and the applause of allies, civilians starve, while drones patrol skies in the name of peace. And as the dust rises in Iran, it settles as ash in Gaza. Two fronts, one message: power demands submission and punishes resistance. In the dead of night on June 21st, the United States launched Operation Midnight Hammer, a covert air campaign heralded as a precision strike to terminate Iran's nuclear breakout capability. The public narrative was simple: eliminate the threat, restore global stability. But intelligence leaks, satellite analysis, and geopolitical silence suggest a very different truth. One cloaked not just in stealth, but in strategy. At precisely 03 Houthis GMT, a wave of 125 U.S. aircraft took to the skies. Among them, 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, RQ-170 drones, and KC-135 refueling tankers, all orchestrated from Whiteman Air Force Base, Missouri. Their payloads, the GBU-57AAB massive ordnance penetrator, designed to punch through 60 meters of reinforced concrete, aimed squarely at 3 targets: Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, Iran's most fortified nuclear sites. President Trump hailed it as a spectacular success, claiming the nuclear heart of Iran had been obliterated. But independent satellite imagery tells another story. Instead of cratered complexes, analysts found unscathed main facilities, untouched centrifuge halls, and logistics trucks departing days earlier, suggesting Tehran had moved critical assets in advance. Iranian officials mocked the attack as a billion-dollar fireworks display. No key uranium enrichment equipment was destroyed. No weapons-grade material detonated. What was bombed may have been shells, symbolic ruins left behind for spectacle. Military analysts now call the strike a strategic illusion, an act of dominance masquerading as defense. It wasn't about crippling Iran, it was about staging control. The bomb sites weren't just coordinates. They were stage props in a geopolitical theater designed to send a message: we choose when you bleed. On June 17th, Iranian diplomats sat across from European Union envoys in Geneva, recommitting to terms of the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. Tehran signaled willingness to expand international inspections and reimpose caps on uranium enrichment. In the media, it was hailed as a return to diplomacy. But in the skies above, a very different message was being written, one made not of words but warplanes. Even as Iran extended its hand, US B-2 bombers were crossing the Persian Gulf. Hours after EU delegates released statements praising constructive engagement, America released GBU-57s, not goodwill. The irony is grotesque. When Iran agrees to talk, America bombs. When they offer diplomacy, Israel turns its guns on civilians. Became a viral post on social media platforms from Beirut to Brussels, accumulating millions of shares. At the June 26th EU summit in Brussels, leaders issued a contradictory statement, calling for maximum restraint from all sides, then, in the next breath, reaffirming unconditional support for Israel's security. Not a word about the dozens of Gazan civilians shot while queuing for food aid. Not a line about children killed by drone surveillance targeting aid flashpoints. The Vatican broke ranks. A senior representative of Pope Leo XIV condemned the U.S. strikes as disproportionate, deceptive, and inhumane. Yet across European capitals, silence remained the loudest response. This paradox, advocating peace while financing destruction, is not just hypocrisy. It's a diplomatic theater of cruelty, one where treaties become fig leaves and de-escalation is used to mask escalation. Legal rhetoric dresses up missiles, but outside the chambers of power, the people see it plainly. War crimes hidden behind the language of peace. As Operation Midnight Hammer unfolded abroad, a different kind of battle erupted within U.S. borders, from San Diego to New York City, from Chicago's Daley Plaza to Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C., tens of thousands of Americans flooded the streets, not to defend Iran, but to defend democracy from within. Protest signs read like indictments. Trump is a war criminal. No more wars in our name. Democracy died in a drone strike. The crowds were diverse. War veterans in desert camo, Gen Z climate activists, African-American clergy, Jewish peace groups, even retired CIA officers. What united them was not loyalty to Tehran, but the rage against unchecked power and the fear that the Constitution had been bypassed like an old stop sign. Inside Capitol Hill, the mood was no less volatile. Bipartisan lawmakers, Senator Tammy Baldwin, DWE, and Senator Mike Lee, RUT, issued a joint letter demanding an investigation into whether President Trump violated the War Powers Resolution of 1973. House Speaker Keisha Hammond called an emergency session to review classified briefings and voted to summon National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien for public testimony. Constitutional scholars warned, if this military action was conducted without congressional authorization, it sets a dangerous precedent, effectively rewriting the balance of war powers in favor of the executive branch. Impeachment talk resurfaced, not over a scandal, but over sovereignty of process. In courtrooms from Boston to Berkeley, legal challenges mounted. Civil rights groups filed lawsuits. Polls showed 63% of Americans opposed unilateral military strikes, especially ones framed as preemptive. The U.S. now finds itself at a crossroads, not just over foreign policy, but over who truly controls the trigger of war. The battlefield is no longer just abroad. It's now inside the democratic fabric of America itself. While the world's attention fixates on Iran's centrifuges, Gaza quietly bleeds. Since late May, more than 500 civilians, including women, children, and the elderly, have been killed in northern Gaza, not during combat, not in crossfire, but while waiting in line for food. According to Reuters and Save the Children, aid distribution points have transformed into militarized death traps. Armed drones hover overhead. Tank shells land meters from food convoys. What began as humanitarian relief under the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, an Israeli-approved initiative, has turned into systematic baiting of desperate civilians. One story has haunted headlines. Dr. Mo Faridi, a British NHS surgeon, recounted the death of his 16-year-old nephew, Mohammed, who was shot dead while waiting for flour. The body was shattered. Only the shoes remained intact, allowing his mother to identify him. He had no weapons, no voice, no future. Just hunger, Dr. Mo told The Guardian, trembling. Inside Gaza's collapsing hospitals, the numbers grow more grotesque. 580 premature babies face certain death as formula, power, and oxygen supplies vanish. Incubators go silent. Families offer milky water and crushed biscuits, desperate substitutions for milk. Famine now holds Gaza in a skeletal grip. According to UN OCHA, 1.17 million people, over half of Gaza's population, are in Phase 5 food insecurity, the most extreme level. Children eat once every 2 days, many with bloated bellies but empty veins. Families barter jewelry for powdered milk, which often arrives contaminated or expired. Even hope has a price now. Those who dare gather at safe zones for aid often end up on drone footage, targeted under the guise of security. One misstep, and relief becomes a grave. This is not collateral damage. This is siege warfare in slow motion, where starvation replaces missiles and breadlines become battlegrounds of visibility. Gaza is not merely being punished. It is being erased, not with nukes, but with needles of cruelty, one sack of flour, one bullet, one orphan at a time. We now stand at a historic crossroads, where one path leads deeper into darkness. Escalating missile strikes, manufactured famines, proxy militias, and a regional war that threatens to spiral into a global catastrophe. The other path, though fragile, leads to the only alternative worth pursuing: diplomacy with dignity, truth over spin, and relief over revenge. This is no longer about Iran alone, nor about Gaza, nor even about Trump or Tel Aviv. It is about a world system on the brink, where injustice cloaks itself in rhetoric and humanitarian law is rewritten by missile trails. The world doesn't need more missiles. It needs truth, declared a Lebanese journalist on air in tears, moments after covering a bombed aid station in Rafah. From Beirut to Brussels, from Haifa to Houston, the message reverberates. Silence is no longer neutrality, it is complicity. Gaza's starving children, Iran's outmaneuvered diplomats, and America's protesters in the streets. They are living barometers of our moral collapse. Even former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, in a rare and cryptic op-ed, warned that if global actors keep provoking Iran, nuclear entry may no longer be taboo, not as attack, but as signal. That is how close we drift toward irreversible lines. History watches, and it will remember. Will we allow this age to be defined by dominance and denial? Or will we choose the harder path of dialogue, restraint, and the courage to name hypocrisy when it wears the mask of peace? As Desmond Tutu once said, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." If truth is more important than strategy, leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel to follow the next content, because the battle for reality has just begun.